Why do we need to be tech literate? How do you balance or evaluate how much do I really need? Because I've been doing my job for a long time.
A lot of people have expected that what automation and AI would displace in terms of job function would be more manual labor, more low skills type of work. And it turns out that AI is really well suited to a lot of the mid-level knowledge management work that many of us sort of our bread and butter. The good news about that is that we get to leverage that ourselves. And if you get good at it, then you become that much better as a professional. If you can become the person who actually uses AI as a tool for research, for writing, for communication, for organizing content, for just general knowledge management, then you are also in a really good place to be in this next wave of career transition. That's exactly where we're going to be at for a little while, is people using AI to augment their efficacy, in a sense, within the workplace.
The idea of job security is outdated as a landline. If you haven't been in a search for a while, it's probable you will at some point, by choice or not. Most executives admit to staying way too long, or sense what's coming and justify staying anyway. There's another reason. The faulty belief that navigating to what's next will inevitably be worse and has to suck. Screw that. Lauren Greif has spent a lifetime in corporate and executive search, calling bullshit on stale career advice that most still use. This is Career Blast in a Half, the career podcast for executives ready to cut past outdated career advice to fuel your outcomes now. So let's go.
Technology is definitely our friend today because we've got literally the AI cheerleader and the technologist and the human technologist all in one in this episode today. So before we get into the show, we've got Kate O'Neill here, and I'm going to introduce her in a minute. But hey ho, thank you. Thank you guys so much for listening. We have just surpassed our 100th episode and just want to extend a huge thank you for listening and being such a wonderful, loyal audience. And shout out to everybody that put reviews together and is following the show. And so now we are moving over to the heartbeat of this episode, which is a really kind of dicey and interesting area that's happening for all of us. Kate O'Neill, I'm going to have you introduce yourself a little bit more, but she's a big deal. She's been covered in Wire magazine, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and get this happy fact, she was one of the first 100 employees at Netflix. Talking about seeing the wave, man, I cannot wait to hear more about this. But really what you're also here to talk to us about today, Kate, is kind of this tenuous balance between the whole world of technology and humanity, and like, where is that crossover point between like, now I'm over reliant on AA and I'm losing my humanity, or I'm so human that I kind of like flicked it off like a booger, like it's not really going to impact me. So please introduce yourself and take us right in. Take us into a little bit of your background and why this is your thing. Why is human technology your thing?
Well, thank you, Lauren. Thank you for having me on your show. I know that we have in common a couple of good friends, and one in particular, Hannah Pryor. Anybody who's out there listening and doesn't know Hannah is a wonderful, wonderful professional person who focuses on her last book was called her first book, and I'm going to say last book because I think she's going to have more to come.
Yes.
Is called Good Awkward, and a really wonderful book. So mutual friend, shout out Hannah. I am in the space around where technology impacts human experience, and that's been the case for a few decades. Really, I'm coming up on 30 years working in technology, and it's been an evolutionary process for sure. But I think these themes were pretty resonant with me from the beginning. You know, I was pretty interested in how we use technology to connect with one another, communicate with one another. You know, how technology can enhance the way we understand one another, or how we connect. And it became more imperative, I think that the more sophisticated technology grew. So as we saw, increasing amounts of data use and algorithmic optimization, and now with AI, the urgency has just grown with all that. So my work has pivoted around in these areas. I was in content strategy, I was in information architecture, I was leading different, an agency working on analytics and strategy. So I've been all around the space. But now for the last decade plus, I've been running my own business, KO Insights, which helps companies understand how to make good decisions around technology, particularly when it is algorithmic and AI augmented, so that it can benefit the business and, like I say, not screw over humanity in the process.
Yeah. Lucky you.
Yeah.
You got all the headaches and the accolades and all the things that are there, because this is not, I would imagine, because this is not my area of expertise, but it is yours, complex, and maybe even getting increasingly complex.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Tell
It
us.
is. Yeah. Well, what I'll tell you is this: that I think that the spaces that I was just having this conversation with my research team, that where I used to feel like I was able to stay up to speed on a given topic like data privacy. And then I might be an interview subject for an article on AI and data privacy. But now there are things that are happening so fast, and I think this is how many people in this space feel, that even the areas that you felt pretty confident in, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, those have probably changed a pretty good amount. And so now there is this kind of run rate of keeping yourself up to date with these ever present, ever changing kinds of conditions. And that's tough. And I think especially for, I know, Lauren, with your audience, a lot of the folks listening are job seekers, in career transition, people who are looking at, we use this euphemism or this term in technology and digital transformation, upskilling and reskilling, and a lot of what that means in reality and experiential reality is you got to find a new job, and I understand that. So I think in reality, it becomes very, very challenging to stay abreast of the technology in ways that make you competitive and reasonable on the market. But I think there are ways, and I hope we can explore some of those in this discussion.
Exactly.
I think there are ways to do that.
So I've been thinking about this quite a bit ever since you were generous enough to agree to come on the show. Here we are. We grew up learning how to read, but that doesn't mean that we all become novelists.
Yeah.
And so what I really want to understand is, when we are in this world, and maybe even with the conflation of AI, why do we need to be AI, or I'll just say the larger umbrella, tech literate? What happens if you decide, or for whatever reasons, you don't know where to go? It's not like they're going to teach you that in your company. How do you balance or evaluate, like, how much do I really need? Because I've been doing my job for a long time.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of different facets here. One is on that level of job skills and keeping yourself current professionally. And I think here we're seeing really rapid transformation, and the things that used to be the way that you would do a particular job, we're going to be seeing a lot of turnover in those types of tasks and how those tasks are done. In your field, you may have already been seeing that over the last few years, last decade or two. I think we can really expect over the next few years to see even more of that sort of rapid transformation and innovation.
Can you put your finger on, like, hey, put your crystal eyeballs on
My futurist
and tell us what you must know and expect? What is the big enchilada?
That's going to vary from job to job, from person to person. But I think for the baseline is things that we Yeah, I think a lot of people have expected that what automation and AI would displace in terms of job function would be more manual labor, more low skills type of work. And it turns out that AI is really well suited to a lot of the mid-level manage work, knowledge management work that many of us, it's sort of our bread and butter. The good news about that is that we get to leverage that ourselves. And if you get good at it, then you become that much better as a professional. If you can become the person who actually uses AI as a tool for research, for writing, for
Mm,
communication, for organizing content, for just general knowledge management, then you are also in a really good place to be in this next wave of career transition. That's exactly where we're going to be at for a little while, is people using AI to augment their efficacy in a sense within the
mm.
workplace, in knowledge management type of roles. So I would say become very versed in the broader generative AI type of tools, large language models like ChatGPT and what they can do. Get a
Claude,
little bit comfortable. Yeah, get comfortable with some of the larger names out there like Claude and ChatGPT. You can
Perplexity.
always use, yeah, you can use, yeah, exactly. There's a number of them. You can use Poe, which
Mhm.
is a great tool that's an aggregator and gives you an opportunity to sort of play with different models so that you can test and see how they work in different ways. It's a
Mm.
great way to familiarize yourself with some of
Ooh,
the
I like
brands that
that.
are out there. Like if you don't have to necessarily create a mid-journey account, you can just play with
Right.
it on
Oh,
the
I like
Poe
that.
platform. So that's really handy. I think also just kind of familiarizing ourselves with what types of prompting works well.
Mm.
One of the things I've been saying for the last few years is that within schools, teachers have been very resistant to kids using ChatGPT to write essays, and the idea that they would need to, rule out the use of ChatGPT entirely. And I actually think that that's a little bit of a mistake. I think that teaching kids an effective way to use ChatGPT to write essays is a way of teaching them to use the current tools to
Mhm.
think the way that we need to think going forward. So what you're going to be doing isn't so much the brawn of writing. You're not going to be writing out long form, but you are going to be writing prompts. And what's going to happen is you're going to write those prompts and rewrite those prompts and rewrite those prompts until you get the kind of output you're looking for. That work is actually not so different from the kind of work it takes to delegate effectively to another
Mm.
human being. So it's actually learning management skills and leadership skills by doing that. So I think these are
That's
things that we need to take a higher level view of and sort of teach ourselves to be nimble and adaptable in terms of the technology we use to accomplish our tasks.
I love that point so much, right? To be able to teach yourself, even at a young age, how to outsource and
Hmm.
delegate and be able to do these things. And so that you are freed up. And I know that the chief economic officer over at LinkedIn talks about those 5 C's, the ones that AI is not going to be able to replace, like curiosity, like collaboration, like creativity. So the better you are at prompting creativity, collaboration, or even curiosity, the more freed up you are to actually go and have a conversation with somebody at a coffee shop and, you know, really connect with them. Because for right now, anyway, you're not connecting wholly with AI, but I know it's spilling out
Yeah,
into the dating world.
and you're not collaborating with AI either. I hate to use the word collaboration when it's human and machine at this point. At some point in the future, maybe it's a little more like collaboration. But for today, I think collaboration is a little bit of an overstatement of what it is.
Okay.
However, I think that the tools often make very good, in a sense, sparring partners with you for the
Hmm.
kind of curiosity and creativity and type of things that you're mentioning there. So, for example, I often use a variety of large language models and other generative AI tools throughout the course of my daily work. And what I end up doing is having it either draft something for me and then saying like, that's terrible, I hate the way that came out, but I hate it for these reasons, right? I hate it
Mm.
because it's making me sound too cliche, or it's leaning on an example that I don't actually think is a very relevant example. Here's an example I think is a much more interesting one. Or, hey, could you come up with an example, AI, that would be closer to this, looking at real world examples in business of, a time when a company, was not visionary enough to see the changes that were coming, or didn't commit to, whatever. You can spell it out. But what happens is that you're getting very crisp and crystallized in your thinking. So it's not you being lazy and having the tool do all the work for you. It's doing a different level of interaction with the work that's you functioning more in your executive brain. And that, I think, is a really important thing to bring to your work.
I am blowing the lid off of our best kept secret, our 30-day blast program. Yeah, you heard it. 30 days. We have seen so much success for this program that past clients have landed in that 30 days and increased their compensation 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, over 100%. Now, not everybody lands and earns that much in 30 days, but my point is it prepares you. And in 30 days, if you're not out of there with a changed mindset and changed, clear and simple ways to be able to navigate the market this year, then we'll gladly refund your misery and you can go back to applying now. Check out the link below for the next 30-day blast, and we would love to have you there because we live for your success, and that's what's really important. See you then. I really appreciate shout out, because there's been some like AI shaming on LinkedIn. Ooh, you wrote that post with AI. Oh, can you believe that you're using it in your content strategy? Well, I'm sorry, but hell to the yeah on that. I mean, you still need to edit it. You still need to be able to get in there and drive that ship. But if it's going to save you an hour,
I think that's more to the point, though, Lauren, is that if you can tell that AI wrote it, it probably didn't have your input nearly enough.
Right.
So that's really the bar that we need to set is, the more you can look at a piece of writing or a piece of art and know that AI generated it. Well, either that's the point in the case of like AI art, maybe you want it to look very otherworldly and outside of human experience. And that would be very much the objective there. But in the case of a piece of writing that you're going to share on LinkedIn and sort of claim it as your own professionally, it better not sound like AI wrote it, right? Like that's right. That's kind of the bar we need to set for ourselves. And that just means trial and error. And we're never going to get better at that than by doing it and trying it and seeing how can we issue the right kind of prompts that are going to get the right kind of output. And how do we then manipulate that output to make sure that it does sound more like us? If you tell ChatGPT that you're writing a LinkedIn post, the default tendency is going to be to sprinkle emoji all through it, right? Like, so what everybody does when they're generating content for LinkedIn. And that's fine, except that you can absolutely tell that's AI generated content. So I think, we look at that and we might want to say like, okay, pull back just a little bit, cut the emojis by half, then maybe we're close. And it's really getting good at that. Yeah.
I want to ask you this question. I think it's really important. Can you help us pinpoint one or two of the most critical and or dangerous gaps that you are seeing right now, either with folks who are on the hiring side or folks who are in the actual candidate seat in their career transitions?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One, I would say on the leadership side, we are seeing rash, hasty decisions to replace wholesale, certain roles with AI tools or AI systems without necessarily knowing what the consequences are going to be of that. And we saw that happen, with November 2022 when ChatGPT first got released to the public. There was a wave of that sort of thing. You may recall, CNBC, Rolling Stone, a number of other publications got dinged because they let a bunch of editors go and they published really bad content, either a bad
Mm.
description of an
Oh
economic
yeah,
event in the
that was
case, I think, of
yeah,
CNET, I think it was. And
yeah.
then,
It was CNET.
Rolling Stone published erroneous information. I can't remember the specific examples, but we've probably all seen those headlines. Those are bad management decisions. So, when we're at a point where I hope that the first wave of these rash decisions is over. And now managers and leaders are taking a little bit more circumspect approach to the whole thing. Like, well, we could use ChatGPT or some other tool like this within our workflow. Maybe let's not get rid of all the human editors, because one of them may be able to catch one of these errors before it goes to print in a way
Okay,
that
so
an
first
AI
one
tool
is
will not.
just like a blanket, like
Yes.
here we go, blah
Yeah.
blah blah.
Yeah,
What are some of
I
the
think
other ones?
I was going to say on the hiring side, I think it's sort of the mirror image of that. It's to say that, to assume that that if there's AI being used in a job function, that it's a goner as a job is a little short-sighted, because I think we have very few of these kinds of jobs right now that don't benefit from human involvement still, and that won't for some time. I think it's a question of the right blend of skills. And you mentioned the 5 C's model. You can think of any number of these types of things, that there are human characteristics like curiosity, like, I think of it more as like contextual awareness and common
Mm.
sense,
Oh, I love that.
emotional intelligence, right? Like the kinds of
Hmm.
things that make you really uniquely suited to being able to recognize when a decision is a bad one, and AI really uniquely unsuited to recognizing it, because we have lived experience in a 3D physical world across time that AI does not have. And AI
Right.
is just trying to mirror this sense of making sense of the world, but that's not the same as us actually making sense of the world as we live through it. So I would say, it's really about challenging yourself to be up to speed to the extent that you're able to, with the AI tools and the technologies. I'll just say, like you said, Lauren, earlier on, let's just say that the technologies, whatever they are, that are relevant in your space, I think being up to speed on those, not having a defeatist attitude like, well, AI is just going to take my job. The conventional wisdom for the last couple of years has been, it's not AI that's going to take your job, it's humans using AI that are going to take your job. And there's some truth to that. I think it's a little bit too trite and kind of cliche at this point, but there's some truth to it. I do think that if we take too defeatist an attitude, then we allow that to happen. We allow other
Mm.
people who are more nimble with these tools to supplant us in the role that we could have had. So don't let that happen, is I think
Right.
what I'm trying to say
I,
there.
I agree with that. I mean, it's here. Embrace it. I mean, of course, there may be some challenges, but this really leads perfectly into the next question, which is, for everyone pretty much who's over 40, we have seen many, many, many technological evolutions.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen, the internet. We've seen mobile phones. We've seen all these things.
Yeah.
How is AI different than some of these past advents?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because I think you get a lot of disagreement and debate about this point, even amongst experts. So, take what I say with a grain of salt, even. But I think that it is different at scale, and that's really the point. It's different because of the sweep and scope of what it transforms. So, I think of one of the points I make in my latest book, What Matters
Yeah,
Next,
what
which is
matters
right
next?
here.
Thank you. I'm glad you right on it. I like it.
Right on it. One of the points I make is that we often conflate the idea of digital transformation with the idea of innovation. And these are two different concepts, even though they're complementary to one another.
Okay, break them
Transformation is
out.
more about catching up to the present moment. What are the expectations already in place? How are people already thinking that things should happen? Like, uh, a whole generation of digital transformation was about moving to brick and mortar type of moving brick and mortar type of transactions online to bricks and clicks or to just e-commerce. So we sort of saw that already play out. Now there's innovation looks more at how can you anticipate just in time what people are going to want and have, sort of multi-sensory types of touch environments, or, use voice interactions with smart
Mm.
speakers. There's a bunch of those kinds of things. But even that is starting to pass into the transformation stage because those have already been with us for a while.
Right.
So you see those kinds of things that you have to think about those on a timeline. What happens with AI, I think, is that a lot is already passed into the transformation moment because now that large language models are out there, now that we have ChatGPT and the competitors to it, it's everybody can use these tools to make themselves that much faster, to make themselves that much more productive. So you as a job seeker or as someone who's in career transition are having to compete, catch up, transform yourself to the present moment. Innovation is going to look like thinking well beyond this moment. And how could you be ready for what's coming down the pike? And so, I don't think people generally think of themselves as being part of that transformation innovation life cycle. It's usually something we
Mm.
think of companies as doing and products. But it's useful, I think, in this case, to think that way about it. So AI has already transformed the expectations of what people can do in terms of their productivity. It's going to keep doing that. And for us, the challenge is how can we innovate? How can we bring a more interesting version of what we offer in terms of our contribution, our skills to the marketplace?
Mm. You're speaking my language and you didn't even know it. This is really, really right on point.
I'm so
And I want
glad.
to wrap up with this question, right? Because you alluded to it, and I like the way you were talking about your research team, right? You were
Hmm.
like I thought I was like up to speed on this, and like then I woke up this morning and something else is out there and it's changing, and the um, amount of change just in terms of volume is
Mhm.
increasing, and the adoption levels and maybe even the expectations around it are equally as challenging. I just want to raise my hand and say I feel this way within the job
Mhm.
market. I really do, because it is one of the most dynamic categories that I could ever play
Yeah.
in. But my question is, so how do you keep up? If you are the average Jane or Joe, how do you do this? Because it can also feel overwhelming and exhausting. Once you get to the basics, right? That's becomes cost of entry. It's
Yeah.
good that you know how to use chat and you can, do your grocery list or your meal planning or do your research on a company. But, before you know it, I'm just going to use my air quotes, right? That's not good enough. So how do you do this?
Yeah, I think it comes back to that C word we talked about earlier, curiosity, right? Like I think everything you think about during a day is an opportunity for you to wonder, how might I be doing this differently? Like grocery shopping or preparing my to-do list for the day or organizing my calendar or, sorting my clothes. I mean, anything. How might I be doing this differently? And then challenging yourself to think about tools that exist or tools that maybe don't exist yet, and how would they enable you to do those things, and what would an ideal process look like. Some of this is just playing around in your head. Some of it's allowing yourself to sort of get creative. But I think what it does is, if it catches your imagination, you can then go research and see if a tool like that exists and something that you might want to familiarize yourself with and become good at using. If it doesn't exist, if you're, ambitious enough, you could maybe think about building that tool.
Mm.
If it doesn't exist and you're not interested in building it, all it has done is given you an opportunity to play in your imaginative headspace and take down the anxiety level about
Mm.
new tools and new technology. So
Mm.
you're staying in a playful mindset and not making it feel like I have to go learn about these things. You're starting from a place where it's actually solving problems for you. And that's a much better headspace to be in. It's a better headspace to be in for entrepreneurs. Most entrepreneurs start out their businesses trying to solve a problem that they themselves encounter. And it's the same for us as we learn our professional skills. If we can start from things we're actually trying to do, it becomes far less intimidating to try to go and learn the things we're going to need to know to build those tools. And my own career is a testament to it. I have done many things throughout my career that I did not know how to do before I was hired to do them, and just went ahead and learned how to do them. I think it's a really important thing to overcome, that sense that something we don't know is holding us back.
One of the things I like the most about what you shared is in this new world of work, the whole, for example, onboarding process. It's more self-service now than it ever was, where we're like somebody's meeting you and taking you around the office and showing you where the bathrooms are. You can actually get a jump start. You can use this. Other things that it really lends itself to that I think are also very important is, at a bare minimum, it's teaching you some level of agility and adaptability. And I can guarantee whoever you are, the next job you have, you're going to need that. Not only are you going to
100%.
need it, you're going to need it in the first 30 days. They're going to change a system, and they're going to decide, oh, guess what? We're now using this. And so if you are building and exercising that muscle early on, kudos to you. And I am doing a round of applause. So I think that
And I think that's a really good interview story too, to just be able to say, my old company, we were doing this thing and I thought of a way we could use AI to replace it. And it took us a little while, but we went ahead and replaced that system, and now they use that still to this day. So, if you tell that story at an interview,
X and X, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, now tell us about your book, because this is not your first rodeo. So tell us about your latest book, What Matters Next.
Yeah, there's a few of them, but this one is number 6 overall, I think, and it's 4th in terms of the business and technology books that I've written. I think of it as sort of the third in a trilogy that have to do with how technology can make business better while making human experience better. And this one is geared at the leaders. So the first one, Tech Humanist, was much more exploratory around sort of philosophically defining the space and saying there is a way that we can use technology to make business better and make human experience better. Here's what it looks like. The second one, A Future So Bright, was to be able to say, like, look, if we look ahead with what I call strategic optimism, then we have the opportunity to say, let's use what we're afraid of to put guardrails around the work we want to do, but let's use what we're hopeful about to go full steam toward it. And let's make sure we're doing that in a way that's for the best futures for the most people. And then this is geared to leaders to be able to say, hey, look, I understand it's a very challenging environment in which to make decisions about technology, because every time you're at a point, if you think it's hard being a job seeker in this market, it's also hard being a leader in this market. The notion that you are going to put in place some kind of AI assisted tool, there's fear that 3-6 months from now that same tool is going to feel antiquated, and it's going to be the wrong tool to have invested in, the wrong platform. Everybody else is going in a different direction. And so there's a lot of uncertainty and ambiguity that leaders are faced with. And so this is an opportunity, an offering to the leadership community to say, here's how you can better think about the timeline of those decisions, how you can think about the future in a way that makes it less daunting, and how you can make more insights and foresights informed decisions so that you're using human wisdom to make those decisions, as opposed to relying completely on simply the market acceleration or what AI tells you to do, or the profit-seeking motives of your board. Bring all of that together, have those factors in place. But the more we can rely on our own human wisdom, the better off we're going to be.
We will definitely. I know it's in June, right? The release is in June.
No, actually, it came out at the end of January, so it's been in the market for almost a month now.
I saw it on Amazon. My apologies. Of course, we will have the link in there. And please, if you are a leader, if you are a job seeker, know what's in store and For sure, for sure. I know that you also collaborated with Henna on Inc. magazine articles. Where else, aside from your book and LinkedIn, might we need to go to find you?
My website is koinsights.com. That's my firm. And that's got a lot of links to, my speaking, my books, and press opportunities. I'm doing press interviews and media, that sort of thing all the time these days. So you'll probably encounter my name and be like, enough, overexposed.
No, they'll be like, I know her. Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic.
That's the best way to find me.
Thank you so much for being
thank you,
here
Lauren.
and being such a informative technologist and humanist all at the same time, the trifecta. And we will absolutely be promoting this show because this is a topic that absolutely, without a doubt, needs some like a ripping of the Band-Aid off, because there's a lot that we are relying on folks who are in this space to help guide us in our careers, in our lives, and also into the future. So thank you so much. And thank you guys so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this episode today, and also more goodies in the show notes. So if you want to follow me on LinkedIn, and also please, hands together like a prayer, please go ahead and follow us on Apple Podcasts. And if you feel inspired, please do write a review. All right. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining today. We appreciate your listening ears. Big time. We ask this: use these tools, not tomorrow, right now, and share them by spreading the love, leaving us a rating and subscribe so you don't miss the next career blast in a half. Most of all, thank you for you.